Welcome to the BriteVibe podcast. At BriteVibe, we believe everyone deserves to be happy. But in today's world, everywhere you turn, there is division and negativity. At BriteVibe, we have created a global movement to bring 8 million people together who are inspired to live bright, live bold, and share bright vibes. Alone, it can be hard to change, but together we can change the world. Welcome to the BriteVibe podcast. Alisha Fernandez Miranda, welcome to the BriteVibe podcast. So happy to have you on today.
Happy to be here, Matt. Thanks for having me.
Yes. Now, first, so we're going to talk. You've got a new book out. It's really cool. It's all about. We're going to be talking about kind of, and you also have a podcast called "Quitting Your Day Job," right? Quit My Day Job. But it's all about kind of a year in transition for you in your life, and kind of taking on some new jobs, but kind of to try them on, to feel them out, if I can paraphrase there. But you're actually zooming in, I guess, on this podcast from not the United States. Where are you zooming in from?
I'm zooming in from sunny Scotland, which is pretty unusual. I am in Edinburgh.
Yes.
And I've been outside actually in my garden most of the day, taking on my meetings from there, because you never know when the sun is going to come out here. So when it does, you have to take advantage of it.
You have to get outside immediately, huh? This is the only time to get the vitamin D. Go soak it in.
Exactly. This is what I say. I'm like, it's my whole year's worth every time. You never know. You never know.
Now, what in the world are you doing? Because you don't sound like you have an accent. So what in the world are you doing? No, you don't sound Scottish at all. So what in the world are you doing in Scotland?
Well, I am from Miami originally. I grew up in Miami and really didn't travel much until I got to college. And then I went abroad when I turned 18, and I got bitten by the travel bug, and I fell in love with being in Europe and being overseas. I came back every summer. I came to the UK to study abroad in London, went back for graduate school. And I kind of had this feeling that no matter what, I didn't even know what I wanted to do for a job, but I knew I wanted to be in London. To me, that was like the center of it all.
Right.
So after I got engaged to my husband, who's also an American, I was like, listen, I want to move to the UK. He was up for it. And so we got a visa and we moved to London in 2008. And we have been in the UK ever since. And I think the story of how we got to Scotland, I mean, the short version is basically that we just loved it. We had friends who lived here. We visited. We bought a house on the Isle of Skye, which is a very remote part in the Northwest.
So you literally, you're committed. You bought a house.
Oh yeah, we're here. I mean, I became a British citizen in 2014. So it's hilarious when I meet people and they're like, "Where are you from?" Like, I'm British. Can't you tell by my accent?
Yeah, yes, exactly.
I really throw them for a loop. It's like, I'm your favorite Cuban, Jewish, American, British person that you've ever met. So anyway, we really fell in love with Scotland. And I think as part of the experiences that led to my what if year and all of that, moving up here and having the slightly quieter pace of life was kind of up on the agenda.
Very interesting. And you have kids too. So it wasn't just you uprooted, your husband. You actually took the whole family.
Everybody up there. Yeah. My kids were, I guess they were 9, almost 10 when we moved. I have twins. They were, it was challenging. I mean, I think moving during the pandemic was challenging for anybody that did it a lot of different ways. You couldn't really get good closure on leaving because we weren't allowed to be in a room with any people for a while. But it's been amazing to watch them thrive and to see them adapt. And let's hope that this was a good experience for them and the central thesis of all of their future.
Right. I was going to say they have their own books to write later. Mom screwed up our lives by making us move to Scotland.
Basically. But, my kids were born in the UK. So they have never lived anywhere else. They feel American because husband and I are, and they've spent a lot of time with our families and they've traveled to the US a lot. But they are also, my daughter plays in the Scottish pipe band, and my son speaks with an English accent. So
I was gonna ask you about the accents, if they actually have accents.
My son does. My daughter sounds really American, which is strange to everybody that meets her. But I think she decided at some point that it was cooler to have an American accent than an English one.
Oh, probably. Yeah. Wherever you're at, right? If you're an American, you have an English accent, you're cool. I didn't think about it, but if you're in Europe and you have there's such a, we don't think of it as an accent, right? But I guess if we're over there, we have an accent, an American accent,
absolutely.
Right? Makes it
People say
out.
To me all the time here, they're like, 100%, which I just think is hilarious because I feel like I have a very generic
right,
American accent. Like it's not even like a fun regional one, like the South or Brooklyn or something like that.
Right. It doesn't have any twang to it or anything, right?
Yeah.
That's hilarious. And when we can visit obviously more about that, but you do have a new book out. It's called My What If Year, and it kind of is a memoir of your life through this year of, sounds like, exploration to me when I kind of
absolutely
looked at it. And so you ended up interning. I'm not going to give it all away, but you ended up interning for different jobs just to try stuff on. But my question is, what were you doing before, and then what was the catalyst for wanting to even do this?
Yeah. So I had really built my entire career in the philanthropy and social impact sector. So I had been a consultant, basically consulting to companies on helping them be less terrible with what they do. And then I went in-house for a few companies and had built a business with my husband since 2011 that I joined full-time in 2015 and then took over as CEO in 2017, essentially doing that work with companies as well as big foundations, wealthy people who wanted to start their own kind of giving, and also helping nonprofits raise money. And so, I got to this point in 2019 where the action of the book starts. And I had done all of the things on my list. I had gone to a good college, was married with kids. I was CEO running my own business. I had all of the markers of success on paper. And I was kind of staring down the barrel of 40 and just really started to increasingly have this feeling that, is this it? Is this the last, I'm just going to do this now for the rest of my life. And there's nothing new and nothing scary and nothing exciting ahead of me. And then, of course, immediately feeling incredibly guilty that I was even questioning.
Right. Why you had it so good, and why
so
should
good.
right,
I had everything. I had everything. Why on earth was I asking myself these questions? And I'm not sure that there was like one catalyst or just death by 1,000 cuts. But I just got to a point where I realized that if I did not do something to kind of get myself unstuck from this feeling of being stuck, that I just would never be happy. And I didn't know what would happen. Would I fall into a depression? I was just really I didn't feel like myself anymore. And so I had an idea that had been born out of a lifelong love of musical theater, always loved musicals, and would always go see a musical and leave and just feel like amazing after. And I kind of said in passing to my husband after we had left a show together once, God, wouldn't it be amazing? Do you think they would let me sit in on rehearsal if I got people coffee and, did all sorts of interning? And I then, in early 2019, I articulated this idea, slightly drunk on martinis, to like two of my friends, and they, instead of laughing at me and saying,
which is when all the best ideas are formed, right?
So true. All the good ideas happen over martinis.
Not after midnight. That's going to be prior to midnight.
Exactly. It's like 10 p.m.
Yeah, 10 p.m. is kind of the cutoff for good ideas and could end up in jail ideas, right? Those are the 10 o'clock's the cutoff. I agree with that.
After midnight, if somebody says, let's go get a tattoo.
No. And I like your 10 o'clock. Probably that 10 o'clock to midnight is kind of the gray area where you should not make any decisions, but you can still have ideas. And then after midnight, no ideas are good ideas, right?
Exactly. Shut them all down. So between 10 and midnight, roughly, we had a bunch of great ideas. I shared this idea with them and they didn't laugh at me and they didn't say it was dumb. They were like, wow, that sounds amazing. What internships would you do? They started talking about the internships they would do. My friend Rebecca wanted to be a producer on Keeping Up with the Kardashians and also an architect. And Laura wanted to work in local government. I mean, everybody has these things that they've kind of always wondered about or dreamed about. And I had my list as well. And so that was really the seed. It then took me quite a long time to execute on that seed, about 1.5 years, but that is really where it came from.
Right. So did you quit your day job type thing? Did you actually stop doing your CEO thing?
I'm a very risk averse person. So it's hilarious to me when people say to me, oh, you were so courageous to do this. I was like, no, I wasn't. The plan was to do one. I was going to do, I had obviously a dream. My original dream before COVID was I was going to do 5 internships throughout the course of the year. And I was going to take them as sort of mini sabbaticals from my job. So the thing that I was telling, I was very afraid at the time of making a huge change. It seemed daunting to imagine an entirely different life for myself than I had lived. Different career, just everything being different, and what it would do to my kids and my husband and what all those things would look like. And so I had convinced myself that this was like a short term going to sow my wild professional oats and then come back to my job refreshed and revitalized, and I'd just get right back on the path that I had been on the whole time. So that was the original plan. So I didn't, in spite of advising people to quit their day jobs, or that's not exactly what I do on my podcast, but I didn't just up and quit my day job at all. I spent months kind of putting all of these things into place, contingency plans, and who's going to take the kids to ballet and soccer, and who's going to take over these clients, and telling everybody, I'm only going away for a month. I didn't say I was doing 5. I was doing one month. And if you need me, you can call me, you can email me. I will be there, available at your disposal for anything that you need. I'm just going to be a little bit busy being an intern and musical theaters during
right. And so you did that.
And so I did that.
Yeah. And nobody died, and nobody, nothing broke too much. Right. I
mean, the entire world fell into a gigantic pandemic.
Well, other than that,
I'm thinking that was not related to me taking off and going to internships. So at least not.
Right. And so how was it? How was your first month-long internship?
Oh, man. Well, it started on February 29th, 2020. So it did not end up being a month. If you, you can think back to that moment in time. Yeah. So I had basically won the internship lottery, and a friend of mine's father had introduced me to 2 directors who were mounting productions, one on Broadway and one off Broadway, that were scheduled to open in April 2020. So one was opening at Lincoln Center, a production called Flying Over Sunset with James Lapine, legendary director. And the other was with John Doyle, another legendary director. It was a of Assassins opening at the Classic Stage Company, which is a fantastic off-Broadway theater in New York. And both of them agreed to let me come and sort of see how I could be helpful.
Nice. Yeah.
And to be part of this experience. So I picked up on February 29th. I said goodbye to my family. I flew to New York with all of this rising dread about this pandemic that I had convinced myself was not going to happen.
Yes, of course. Yeah. I remember the memes. We got it, in the States, we obviously, we got it later, and so I remember all the memes about Corona and people, like all the joking and everything like that. And then all of a sudden it was like, oh wait, there's something actually here. We're doing something, right? So you flew to New York, you landed.
Yeah, I landed, and I started I would spend the evenings in tech rehearsal with Flying Over Sunset. So they were already in the theater and sort of getting everything ready for their first preview, which was supposed to open on, I think it was March 13th, 2020. And then during the day, I would be with the Assassins production, and they were at the very beginning of their rehearsal day, and desperately trying to make myself useful by filling up water glasses for people and cleaning the floors and arranging music stands and getting coffee and doing all of those intern things, and having the most extraordinary time of my life while the world was crumbling around me. And just, I was actually living my dream, the thing I had always dreamed about since I was a kid, being part of a musical. And there I was. So it's easy to see why I was in such denial that it was happening. But it was a truly incredible experience. When things went down, it happened very quickly.
Fast,
I was in a show. I walked into the show, and by the intermission of the show, flights were canceled. And 24 hours later, they shut down all Broadway shows. And that shutdown lasted for 18 months, which, people thought it was going to be 2 weeks.
Yeah, I remember 2 weeks, maybe a month. Right.
Exactly.
Wow. That's crazy. 18 months. I didn't realize it shut it down that long.
So long. It's the longest shutdown ever in the history of Broadway by a long shot.
A long way. Right. Yeah. Right. Wow. And so you did that. Obviously, it was kind of a weird ending to that. You went home to Scotland or to England, whichever one at that point. You went home to one of those.
I went home to England, and then we came up to Scotland.
Okay, then you decided, hey, I don't have enough adventure in my life. I'm going to move to Scotland.
Well, so I got home. I had really been ignoring the situation because I was having the best time of my life. I
You're
didn't
like,
want to.
world, don't ruin this for me.
Exactly.
Everybody else do whatever you want to do, but don't ruin it for me.
Exactly. Do you know what though? But it was, I know that seems really selfish. And I feel like the constant refrain during the pandemic was like, I know I'm so lucky, but,
Right.
and there was this constant feeling that I think a lot of people with extraordinary privilege like I had felt, which was,
Right.
this is very horrible, but so many people have it so much worse. So it feels really bad to complain about the situation I'm in. But it's horrible for everybody in lots of different ways. You know, I think, you know, obviously much more horrible for others than it was in some cases for me. But I did immediately feel selfishly, I just couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe I had spent a year
all this time, all this planning.
And this was supposed to be the thing. This was supposed to be the thing that was going to save my mental and emotional health, make me a better mom, set me on the right path. I had put all of my eggs into this basket.
And your emotional,
and then the basket just like fell apart on the floor. So while I was like gallivanting in New York, my husband was back in London, like pretty much freaking out. When I arrived home, there was a suitcase of staples. He had been going to the grocery store and essentially like he was like panic buying before anybody was panic buying. Pasta and rice and beans and nonsense things like shiitake mushrooms, which are still in our cabinets. And we, at the time, we had a small, like a cottage, like a vacation house up in the Isle of Skye. And my husband was like, this is the perfect place to ride out the impending apocalypse. So,
the zombies won't find us there.
Exactly. And you know, there's only one bridge. So you can blow.
Okay. So we can blow that up, right? We can blow the bridge or defend it, right?
We used to joke that this was like our apocalypse plan. And then the apocalypse happened and we were
you're like, oh.
to be there. So we did that. And it was before school shut down in the UK. You know, here the UK government was still saying in mid-March, everything's going to be fine.
We're okay. Right.
But my husband was convinced and I thought he was probably right. So we went to Skye. A few weeks later, the entire country went into lockdown. And I then embarked on like a deep depression, a lot of stress baking and a lot of stress eating. And just, you know, everything was so overwhelming. I was homeschooling the kids and I was trying to jump back into the company because obviously everybody was freaking out about what was going on. And I just did not want to let this project die. So I was scrolling through Instagram one night and I came across a friend of mine who used to be my personal trainer. She had a fitness company and there she was running a class Instagram live in the middle of her living room.
Right. Yeah.
And I reached out to her and I said, are you trying to like start a virtual fitness thing? And if so, do you want an intern to help you? I can't leave my house, neither can you, but would you like some free help? And she was
right. That's not a hard yes. I mean, that's like, oh yes, free labor. No, I don't want that. Right.
Oh. And in it was like a Wild West, you know, now the idea of fitness in your living room seems like, well, of course,
normal.
You know, at the time,
that was crazy. No, I remember we did I owned a gym at the time. And
oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So you really know.
Oh yeah. Yeah. No, that did not survive COVID. But yeah, we went to like, people were just like, what do we do? And then, it just was Facebook Live and then Zoom eventually. And then, and you just, it was normal. Okay, every day at 9:00, we're going to have this class and then this class and everybody's in their living room.
And it was, I know I can speak for myself, but also for a lot of people, it was a savior for me, not just from the injury thing, which absolutely was the thing I needed to keep motivation, to keep myself from going crazy, but just having that human connection and the opportunity to do physical activity in a time where everybody was thinking about their health and worried about their health. And pretty extraordinary. There was here in the UK, this personal trainer named Joe Wicks, who's now like knighted. He's like become like the most famous person in the country. He started a YouTube class called PE with Joe, and it was for kids. And every day at 9 a.m., he would do like a 15 or 20 minute fitness session for kids. And there was one point, I think at the real height of the lockdown, that something like 40 million, there's only 60 million people in the UK. And it was like 90% of the households in the UK were turning in at 9.
Tuned in.
Because we all felt connected through that. So I was really lucky. I was so lucky to be able to work with Frankie. Part of my job interning for her was market testing all of the other virtual fitness classes that were being offered. So, every day I was in my living room doing voguing yoga from a studio in London and Zumba from a place in Miami and aerobics from somewhere in Sydney and trying everything out. And it really did get me through what was an incredibly difficult period for everybody.
Right. Yeah, totally. And so that was your second kind of internship. And then you went on to do more. And was it just exploring things that you just had it was like, oh, that's kind of neat. And was it kind of like, did you have in your mind, I'm going to do this for 30 days or I'm going to do this did you kind of have a start and stop time frame in your head when you went into these projects?
So I had, originally I had like a plan, a very detailed plan. It was a color-coded calendar.
Oh, nice.
For the entire year. And I had slotted in at like the control freak that I am. I won't because even though I'm trying to be less controlling, it's an intentional daily practice.
You're still in recovery.
I'm working on it. But I had planned everything out and it was so structured. I had a list of all the jobs. I really started thinking like, what are the things I've always been curious about, that I've always loved, that I would love to know more about, where I really could see myself spending a month or 2 months of my time. So I had my list. And then when COVID happened, my list went out the window because I couldn't go work at the marine biology lab because everything was closed. And I certainly couldn't go to Disney because you couldn't even fly.
Disney was closed. Right. Yeah.
Disney was closed for a while. And, so there were so many things. I had to just adapt my plan immediately. So originally, I was like, I'm going to go in for this amount of time and do this hard start, hard stop. And everything is organized around my life. And then once COVID happened, that all went out the window. And in order to actually do the things that I wanted to do, I had to just be open and flexible. So I managed to secure 2 more internships. I went to work for a contemporary art dealer in London. And that had a hard stop because I had the internship right after that, which was working at a hotel and restaurant on the Isle of Skye.
Oh, okay.
And both fields I had always wondered about, dreamed about, were wondering, could this be a future career path, but also just that I thought were going to be really fun to do. And the one in Skye sort of naturally came to an end because we went back into lockdown again after about a month. But, by the time I got to the 4th internship, I had learned so much, I had grown so much, and I kind of knew what I needed to do next, which was, make a much bigger change than I had anticipated at the beginning when I thought I was just going off to do these little mini sabbaticals. So it sort of came to a natural conclusion, although occasionally someone will tell me what they do. And I'm like, can I go intern with you for a month? My husband has to be like, stop interning.
stop interning. Right. It doesn't pay well.
Yeah,
right.
It doesn't. Definitely doesn't. And he's also like, you need to be like, stop going everywhere. I just interviewed for my podcast a couple of weeks ago, a wedding officiant in Vegas. And I was like, oh my God, I need to interview. My husband's like, he's overhearing me. I can hear him. He's like, you're not going to Vegas. Right, next year, we'll go next year.
You can just do that for a week, right? You don't have to go for a whole month. You can just
go renew our vows.
It's Vegas. You don't sleep in Vegas. So like a week is a month. Nobody wants to spend more than probably a week anyway in Vegas, right? They're going to be like, okay, I'm done.
I've actually never been to Vegas, which is
really?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the allure of Vegas is basically everybody just spends 3 days in Vegas. So you don't have time to really, you can hold back reality and hold back and you stay, I'm sure, pseudo liquored up most of the time. So, that's Vegas is like a little time bubble. Yeah. Vegas.
I went to Cancun when I was for summer after graduation, high school graduation in 2000. And that's what it reminds me of. It was like, you're in this weird world where all the rules are different. And by the end of it, you're like, I need to eat a vegetable and
and I need
for like 2 weeks.
Right.
And but it's like a weird kind of capsule. That's what I imagine Vegas to be like.
Yes.
I'll go at some point.
I would agree. I've never done the truly Vegas. I have, I guess once, but it was like, I was much older and it didn't seem that cool to me. You mentioned your podcast and it's called Quit My Day Job. So you must just tell people how to quit their day job, but what is it really?
I don't really tell people to quit your day jobs. Although that is the name of it. So quit your day job started as a way to continue my ongoing fascination and curiosity about people's jobs without having to leave my house and go to Vegas for a month.
And without having the internship. Right. Yeah.
So, once I finished the kind of journey that I was on.
Mm-hmm.
And I started making some changes in my life and changed my job, changed where we live, changed all of that. But I still was so curious about all the things that I didn't get a chance to do. So Quit Your Day Job started as a way to just interview people working fascinating jobs and talk to them about their life and the decisions that had led them there and what it was really like behind the scenes of those jobs. My first interview was with a friend of mine from college who directs sitcoms for a number of different stations. At the time, she was mostly doing NBC. And I was like, I want to know everything. What is it like to be a TV director and a mom? How do you structure your life? How does that all work? And so it really snowballed from there. I've done 49 or 50 episodes now. And it's just been such a joy because I started, of course, by like begging everybody I know to be on.
Right. Yeah.
And then when it got a bit more traction in the second season, I had a lot of people coming to me. So I got to interview a former spy for the CIA and
very cool.
Broadway actress turned gardener and, all of these really cool jobs, some of which I didn't even know existed. And to hear people's stories is like such a gift. I mean, you're podcast all the time. So.
Yep, exactly. It is. So what was something that you gleaned, and obviously you've got the book, so people want to deep dive, they need to get the book. But what was something that surprised you, I guess, through that year-long or maybe year-plus experience? What was something that kind of, I hate to boil it down and say, what was your takeaway? But in essence, kind of what surprised you about that experiment?
I think that I had not realized, so many things, but I think a big one for me was I had really strayed very far from feeling like the person that I was. I think I had spent a lot of time in the years leading up to this moment of, you can call it crisis, you can call it wherever. I was all of these things to all of these people. I was a mom and it was very intense, especially with twins in those early years. And I was building up the company and I was CEO and I had all of these titles and I had kind of forgotten like who the person was underneath all of that. And I knew that I was struggling, but I didn't realize how far I had drifted from feeling like myself until I went through this whole process and came out of it the other end and then remembered that there were all of these different parts to me that I had maybe let fall aside. It was my own fault, really, but I had always loved art and I had just stopped going to galleries or exhibitions. I had no excuse. I lived in London. I had the time. I could have not been on Instagram. I could have just gone and I didn't do it. I, had a whole creative side that loved writing and doing things like that. And that was just not something I paid any attention to or did at all. And so it was surprising to me how far I had drifted, but also how easy it was to get that back once I started paying attention to it and really being intentional. I learned so much about myself. I surprised myself with the things I was capable of doing. And I also learned how really bad I was at waitressing, anything to do with hospitality. Couldn't remember people's room numbers and I was checking them in, spilling food, spilling drinks. My fourth internship was truly, I was very terrible.
But you found out, right?
I found out. Didn't know that I couldn't do that anymore.
You're like, okay,
no, it's not for me.
Yeah. And how is that? I guess you said you came out the other side. So what does that look like now? You did this thing. Now you're semi-addicted to doing internships, it sounds like. But how is life different now?
I am addicted. The thing I'm addicted to is the spirit behind internships, which is this idea that you start something unknown and you have to really listen and learn and pay attention, that your focus is not necessarily on what's the next job, what's the next title, but am I enjoying this? The way that you would go into an internship if you were 20, like, is this a job I want to do? How does this actually work? Trying to get under the skin of something and really understand that. That's the feeling that has kept me going. And that's sort of guiding a lot of my professional decisions now. So, I decided to step back from my CEO position, continue on as chair, but to make that one of a number of different things that I did. I've kept working in a few of my internships. I won't tell you which ones, so y'all go read the book, find out. So I've got, kind of now actually paid gigs in in some of the other places that I interned. And then I really resolved to just let myself be open to different opportunities, to not have to plan everything, to not have to have everything set in front of me. And the book has been one of those extraordinary gifts. The book came out in February. It has taken me all over the country, meeting incredible people, doing things I never thought I would have a chance to do, like being on TV and being able to sit in conversations with you, talk about my life. And it's just been so cool. I mean, I never thought I'd have a podcast. All of those things have been new, and they all have made themselves part of my life, in large part because I created space for them to come in. I wasn't so busy that I didn't have time to take on any new opportunities, to explore any new things. And I wasn't so planned and controlled that I had to say no to things, because I was like, no, I know what I'm doing 2 Octobers from now, and I couldn't possibly do this other thing. So I live in Edinburgh. But today I went and I did some writing. I'm working on a novel this morning. Nice. I had a meeting for the consulting business. I hopped over to my kids' school to watch them perform in this opera thing. And then I came back here to record a podcast. So, nice. Every day is slightly different, but at the center, I'm putting joy, I'm putting learning and things that make me feel slightly uncomfortable, because the last thing I want to do is feel stuck again.
Well, good for you. Sounds like you're alive again, if you want to say it that way, right? I think, and too often in life, we just get in that. I do this too. I just get in this place where you're just doing what you do because you've always done it. In fact, we're getting really relocate our family across 1,000 miles from here, just because of the same, I think a lot of the same reasons. It was just kind of like, I realized at some point, or we realized as a family, it was like, we're just doing the same thing every day, and we're going to continue to do the same thing every day because it's the environment we lived in. Our habits have kind of stacked on top of habits, and now we're just on autopilot for most of the day. And it's like, how do we get out of autopilot? And I said, well, let's just go on vacation and not come home, right? Let's just go on vacation and just not return, awesome. Right? And so, I actually, my prayer this morning was, just give me reassurance that this is the right thing to do. This relocating is the right thing to do. And then here you are, you're an answer to my prayer this morning, because you're reassuring me that doing something outside my comfort zone that makes me nervous or makes me anxious or makes me question, right, is a little scary, but it's also freeing or liberating to kind of liberate yourself from yourself to some degree.
Yes. And it's reigniting, I mean, I applaud that you're doing that. I just, I've met so many people, and some who have they've come to a book event or they've read the book. Some have already done this, they're further along on their what if journey than I am. And some are saying, I've always wanted to be an interior designer, and, and that was just try it. Like, there are very few things in life that you are so irreversible that you cannot go back on them, even the hardest moments, the most difficult parts of this experience, relocating my kids was not easy. There was a very difficult period for them, where they had to be somewhere different. They had to make new friends. And I'd be lying if I told you I didn't have thoughts once a day at that time. Like, have I made a horrible mistake? Life? But you know what? And now it's turned out well, but it's also turned out well because we let ourselves do it. We were open to doing that, and we took the leap. And if it had been so horrible, maybe we wouldn't be here, but maybe we'd be somewhere else. And I just feel like it's just that feeling of wondering if you should have done something. I never want to have that feeling. If you've got a voice that's telling you get up and do, you got to listen to it. That's your intuition and your gut are very powerful, I think. And I'm glad I did. And I'm glad you're doing it. I bet you're going to have an amazing adventure.
I think it will be an amazing adventure. I'm a very creative person in the field of business, and it's like, I've kind of done the things here that I want to do. So I'll continue the podcast because it's fun for me, right? Just like it's fun for you, right?
And you can do it from anywhere.
Right. The gig doesn't pay very well, but it's super fun, right? It's like an internship into podcasting.
Exactly.
But yeah, I do look forward to the new adventures and meeting new people and inviting my old friends to come visit me in a new place, right? That's part of the adventure too. It's like, come visit. I'm sure you have people come visit you in Scotland that you knew in London.
I think I have more people coming here than that came to London, actually.
Yeah, exactly. That's kind of what as I started, we're moving to kind of a mountainous area where it's more of a resort, well, not a resort, but a destination, a touristy destination. And so it's like, I think more people will visit us in our home there, then we've invited to visit us here in our home, right? It's like,
Wow.
and we only live 20 miles apart or less, right? So anyway, yeah. So thank you for your time today. I just Googled you and you popped right up. You did a great job with your SEO. I Googled your name and boom, you were the very first website on the top. So
all right.
But let's tell people where to find you just so they can find information about your podcast, about your book, about a little bit more about you, your story. You've got some videos up there. Is it AlishaFernandezMiranda.com?
AlishaFmiranda.com.
Oh,
Well,
Alisha.
I should probably buy that domain as well, Alisha Fernandez Miranda. No,
That's
go to AlishaFmiranda.com. Everything is there. I spend a lot of time on Instagram, same handle,
okay.
Alisha Miranda. And you can find my book everywhere books are sold. My What If Year. My podcast is it's Quit Your Day Job. It's on all the podcast networks.
Right.
And I'm glad you said that because before this book came out, my number 1 return search, I think, was my wedding announcement from 2007 in the New York Times,
right? Which
was very exciting. But people would like do it, and then they'd have a meeting with me. They'd be like, "You look different now." I'm like, "Well, yeah, I'm not 25 anymore."
That's hilarious. So no, it was your website. I literally searched, I think, Google or Bing or whatever came up on my thing, and it was the very first thing. I was like, "Oh, that's easy." I just clicked there, and you had some great videos. It was easy to do show research. So yes, you made it easy on me. Thank you. I appreciate that. And in our parting thought for the day, I like to play with this thought sometimes. If you had just one message to give to the other 8 billion little ants crawling around on this rock we call Earth, if you had one message to give to everybody, like they were going to get this message specifically from you, and everybody got to hear the message, what would that message be?
What a great question. I think it would be do the thing.
Do the thing.
Buy the bikini, go to the show, book the flight, try the new job. There's so many times that we don't listen to those voices or we don't take a chance because we're afraid and life is short. And I just think whatever that thing is that is pulling you, if you hear the question, what if, and that thing comes to your mind, just do the thing. Just do it.
Just do the thing.
Tagline. Don't say just do it. Nike owns that one. I'm going to go with do the thing.
Do the thing. I like it. I think you should. If that's not taken, that's the domain you need to go get. Do the thing. And that's the title of your next book. I'll do that immediately
after we get off this call.
You should. And that's the title of your next book. I do that a lot on the show. I'm like, give authors their next book, which is do the thing, right? Because you're going to add on to the things that you've done. And so the next thing will just be do the thing, whatever that thing is, whatever scares you a little bit and also inspires you, right?
Totally.
Do the thing. So it was so wonderful to have you on today. Thank you for coming on our BriteVibe podcast. We try to put bright vibrations out there in the universe and in the podcast world and in the YouTube world. And so definitely you qualify as a bright ray of sunshine in our world. So literally it's shining on your face right now.
I know.
You're getting sun shining on. I mean, it's a great, so if you're watching it on YouTube, you're seeing it. If you're listening to it on the podcast, definitely you're getting sun right on your face. So it's like a bright ray of sun. So thank you so much.
I feel brighter having talked to you. This was delightful. And I wish you the best of luck on your big adventure.
Thank you so much. I will take that luck to heart and I will carry it with me. So thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you.
All right. Bye. Thank you for being a part of the BriteVibe podcast. For more information, go to britevibe.com. That's BRITE Vibe, VIBE.com. Thank you for listening.